what are your like 3 to 5 favorite books? Like, what comes to mind and why?
Ah, I mean, there are so many books I have read, particularly which are related to human nature and psychology. Those are my most favorite because they give a insight about like how human behaves and how like what makes a person tick. And there are so many interesting things about humans, and also they like as a human being it is so complex to understand. We feel like just we take just outward appearance as for granted, so we don't know like what really goes inside the person's mind. So the favorite books of mine would be The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. So yeah, like I read the book for, I don't remember the exact number. I think 6 to 7 times I read the book, I guess. So it's a very thick book, 600 pages, 700 pages. It would be. It's really an interesting read. And the another other book that is related to psychology. One of my fa recent favorite reads is Determined by Robert Sapolsky. I don't know how to like correctly pronounce his name, but it is about free will. And I mean it is in a way proving that neurologically there is no such thing as free will. So, but it gives insights about how uh, how an outcome is determined by so many factors. It's not like we usually believe that just hard work or like being consistent will give us the results that we want, but there are so many factors behind an outcome so that we are not aware of. So one like two books, so Laws of Human Nature and Determined, and another book would be The Quit by Annie Duke. So like there is this popular saying that don't give up, but the author says the opposite. So sometimes we have to quit some things. So like she gives the guideline and the principles like where you need to quit. Like so she gives us these insights about so like what is a success and failure. So success is more about a process of decision making rather than the outcome itself, and the failure is like not adding the enough details into your process of decision making. So it is one of interesting read. So these are three books that
So you
I highly
mentioned one
recommend
of them
to
was
everyone.
Robert Sapolsky. Um, I've I don't know how much you know about him, Joe.
Yes.
I've come across him a couple of times. He seems to talk about sort of the psychology of free will and stuff. Yeah, could you go a bit sort of deeper about that book and what why that anything else he sort of says in that?
For me, like I have this curious nature about like how a decision is being made by a person. So it's we think like we just think we make a decision, but it's not true. Like sometimes our hormones, our environment, even the sense of smell or sense of light, so they affect our decision making process. So in that book, he mentioned that like he kind of gave a challenge to the neurobiology scientists that like give me one neuron or like, show me one neuron where that acts independent of all the other neurons around it, where it kind of contributes to the decision that you have taken. So it is that, so it's kind of like every neuron or like our hormone, like every cell in a brain. So it kind of like acts uh, in an integration. So in an integration that how do you say in integration, so there is no such one neuron that can be calling shots. So yeah, so that is one of the thing. And another, the first he divided into two, the book into two parts. One is about the neurobiology and neuroscience, and another one is about randomness and luck factor. So he is saying that if you add enough data points in a system, so we can determine the nature of it. So even though we think like life is very random, or like there is so much of luck factor involved, but if you can able to add all the data points into a system, we can predict the outcome. So he is in a way saying that life is deterministic, and there is no such thing as free will. So that, like, these 2 points kind of made me reread it and also consider it as one of my favorite read.
Yeah, it's interesting this free will idea. I remember in A-level psychology, we looked at this study by a researcher called Libet in 2013, and they found that the neural activation in your brain to, I think the very simple movement pattern they had in that study was just moving your finger. That
Yeah,
neurological activity happens before the activity for the conscious decision to do the thing. So it's kind of like
yeah,
your body was going to do that thing anyway, and then you had the conscious decision to do it, which kind of it reinforces that free will not existing argument.
That like
And it's one I kind of that has stayed
your body
quite
moves
clear in my
or your
mind when
mind.
this topic is discussed. Go on, Jake.
But like
Sort. I
also
yeah.
mean, we're talking about
say with
fractions of
exercise as well.
milliseconds,
Like when
but
you're
Mm,
playing wheelchair
go on.
basketball, do you feel like you just do it, don't you? You don't really think about it.
yeah,
Yeah, there's no. I couldn't consciously animate the multitude of muscles that are needed to perform a particular move or take a particular shot. I kind of the decisions I make are very broad, I guess, which is I want to go down the floor and score and maybe set up my teammate in a certain way or position myself in a certain way to create some kind of offense. But the real fine tuned like behavior of my body is automatic. And I know, Jacob, we talked a lot about sort of getting good at something is actually about making it automatic and making it unconscious. And that's not necessarily something to be afraid of. It's something to be to seek, I think, to make something
yeah.
automatic and kind of out of your power. But yeah, this idea is interesting, and I don't think, to me, the less interesting debate is whether or not we have free will. The more important debate is if we don't have free will, if they can somehow prove this scientifically, which kind of these studies point in the direction of that, then what do we do about that information? Because life feels like it's our own, doesn't it? And that's interesting. We feel like we have control over everything that goes on. So it's like there's this disparity between how it feels to be us and the nature of reality is maybe some philosophers and scientists would put it out to us, this kind of deterministic philosophy. Like, I'm just interested for both of your thoughts on that. Like, what do we do then, knowing that there's a potential that free will doesn't exist? How do we harness the
You
right
go first.
mentality to live life if that's
Evidence.
the case?
Um, yeah, yeah. In the book, he addressed the same issue, so that like so one of the like other scientists would have asked him. He was saying something like, if there is no such thing as free will, are we responsible for our own behavior? So let's say that uh, in this society there are criminals. So if something is propelling them to do something, so are they responsible for their own behavior? So he is in a way saying that like the biology um like forcing like kind of pushing them to behave in a way they behave, but he is saying that the crime like the punishment should not be that harsh. So he's in a way saying that we have to be um little bit gentle and not too harsh on the criminals. So like even if it is a free will, no free will, there is free will, we should be in a way responsible for our own behavior. It's like not he addressed there is one point in the book he addresses that. So just because there is no such thing as free will, not all humans gonna go their way out and be violently. So even though there is no such thing as free will, like let's assume that there is no such thing as free will, we will not um, harm people, we will not hurt people just by saying that we want to hurt. So even like there are in the book, I mean, there is one another book, like famous book, The Righteous Mind. I don't know the author name, I forgot. It's so he in a way he mentioned so morality is deeply ingrained in our brains. So it's just that there are some bad apples in the society. So it's completely understandable, but what makes them the bad apples, it is something we need to study about. So, like, is it about the genes? Is it about the trauma they have been through? Is it about the environment? So, these are the things that we need to study. And author is in a way suggesting that we should be less harsh in terms of punishment. Like, there should not be any
Right.
capital
Just so I'm
punishment,
trying
kind
to
of.
understand correctly, um, is what you're trying to say that you said like not be too harsh, so like not be too harsh on yourself and kind of not um, go around and kind of lose this like even though we don't have free will, we shouldn't like exploit that and kind of yeah
Yeah,
use it as an excuse for immoral behavior, but then also people that do act out of line, there's a level of, what's the right word? There's a level of you can go too far and see these people as evil when if we have this view that a lot of things we do are driven by so many factors outside of our control, then is it actually the criminal's fault for them as an individual? Is immoral antisocial behavior driven by just that one individual deciding to be evil, or is it this cocktail of outside factors that they've then acted how they have because they've been driven by things out of
yeah
their control? It's interesting. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
that's where I get deep about things, because people do have opinions on certain people that act out of line. But if there's something I've realized in my life, it's a good call to compassion, I guess, because whatever context we walk within, whatever things we do, we meet people that we just don't gel with and we don't like, and maybe they're a bit bitter or a bit toxic. And this is not me talking about the extremes like criminals. I'm just talking about people day to day that maybe make comments about us that we don't like, or act in an uncooperative way. I find a lot of the time these people are just unhappy themselves because of some sort of
yeah,
trauma they've been through, or some sort of insecurity they've got, or their life isn't in the way that they'd like it to be, so they act that way. And it actually, I think, maybe a positive to this deterministic perspective is that you can then be compassionate towards people that do wrong, not just in the extreme cases of like murderers and things, and develop ideas about how capital punishment fits into that and stuff, but also about the day-to-day mundane stuff of people you just don't get on with, or people that you think wrong you in some small way. Really, it calls you to give them the benefit of the doubt and go, well, if I had their brain and their circumstances and their past, I'd probably act the same way. And so you can let go
but
of a
then
bit of your
I feel like
frustration and anger, I think.
it'd be kind of more of a bad consequence than good, like because then you'd kind of think to yourself, well, is any of this my fault that I'm in this situation, and is it just all fate? It's supposed to be is me from
yeah,
being bad from a previous life, and well, is this all just meant to be? And there's just some puppeteers that are controlling what I do in life. Like, um, it, yeah, I feel like if a lot of people believe this idea, like the world would just turn into anarchy.
Well, that's the thing. That's
yeah,
why I think it's interesting, because like I said a few minutes ago, it feels in our own consciousness as individuals, it feels like we are in control of what's going on, and we have to do something about that, because I think you're right, Jacob. We have to protect ourselves against this kind of nihilism, because it's not healthy. It's not a good way to live life. Because it's interesting,
yeah,
isn't it? Because then you could argue, right? If someone then says, okay, we live in a deterministic reality and none of this is under my control, and then they stop trying at life, right? They mope around in their bed and just eat Doritos and watch Netflix. Their life is going to get worse, and they've made the decision to stop trying at life, or at least it feels that way, doesn't it? So there's an interesting situation there where you go, well, yes, life might not be under your control, because it definitely isn't. There's so much going on outside of me and all of us that we're not, we're not controlling, but you have to keep trying, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You do have to keep trying.
Yeah, there is one like it was brought up by the Naval Ravikant. So I guess like you guys would know. So he mentioned that even if there is no such thing as free will or something, we have to act like we have agency. So otherwise everything is gonna collapse around us. So yeah, he mentioned that like you have to wake up, like you have to feel that there is something you can do, there is a change that you can bring. Otherwise, you feel hopeless about the entire situation. Like whatever I do, it is determined by something. So you feel like you don't want to do anything. So anyway, it is kind of like no matter what I do, my efforts are not going to be appreciated by the world. So you just feel uh, like not doing anything. So there is no meaning to your existence or something. So even if there are no such thing as free will, we have to behave as if like we have agency and free will. So yeah. So but one of the interesting thing that happened with Robert Sapolsky book is that so he published a book about there is no such thing as free will. On the same day, there was another book published by um, another author. Like he is saying, he is arguing that there is a free will. So I mean, I don't remember the book title. It is called something called Super Agents or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
Free Agents, I think. Yeah,
it is. I think agency is something I've talked about in my content across many years. I think it's an essential psychological trait to have a good life. Because you have to feel like your life is yours. I think there's an inextricable link between agency and feeling like what you're doing matters, and then meaning, right? Which is basically the definition of feeling like what you're doing matters. I think agency and meaning are the same thing. You derive meaning from stuff that you think you did to affect the world in a positive way. And so if you don't have that, that's a free ticket to a life of sort of meaningless suffering, which is obviously a backbone of a lot of Jordan Peterson's work, which I'm sure we're all aware of here, that responsibility
Wait,
and meaning are inextricably linked.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're going to suffer anyway. So you may as well suffer feeling like you're doing something right and that you're doing it and it's for the good of the world and it's coming from you as an agentic individual, rather than letting all that go and then suffering anyway. You have to suffer for some
yeah.
kind of purpose,
could you
and
just
a
define
purpose that
agency?
matters to you. Ooh, well, it's the feeling that you are the agent in your life, that
The
you
main
are the
character.
one that's orchestrating everything going on here. Well, actually, not everything going on, but let's say you're the one that orchestrates your own behavior and thus your outcomes for the most
Mm.
part. I mean, obviously, there's going to be influences outside of you. You can't control other people. You can't control nature. The sun's going to rise and set no matter what you do. But it's more like I feel agentic because I decide that I'm going to wake up at this time tomorrow and do this set of things at a decent level of sort of efficiency and effort to then lead to this outcome that I want, that might come and probably will come from those behaviors. It's just it's
Is
where
there
you
people
feel
that
like the
like don't
power
do
is in
that
your
then?
life, I
Like, because
guess.
that's kind of just like
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like it's just an automatic thing for sort of probably all three of us.
Well, it's interesting. So one of my favorite psychology theories was there was a person called research called Rotter in the 1960s that came up with this idea of locus of control, which
Mm.
basically means the area in your life that you give the control. And it exists as a spectrum between an internal locus of control and an external locus of control. If you have an internal locus of control, then the power of your life is internal. It's down to you and your behaviors and your reactions to things. But an external locus of control on the other side of that means that to you, the power in your life is society, the government, the culture, the people around you, the external influences, the narratives that you adopt and live out. Right? It's not you driving. You're not the captain of your
Yeah.
vessel. But what's really interesting about that is external locus of control is associated with higher anxiety and higher rates of depression. And so internal locus of control people are happier in general, more motivated towards goals and find more meaning in their life. So
Well,
when
why
I
is it
found that out,
higher
it's
with
really interesting
depression?
because it can be I don't know the specifics of why, but there's a relationship there. There's a relationship between anxiety disorders and poor mental health and an external locus of control. Because what's worse? What's worse than feeling bad? Feeling bad and it's not your
Yeah.
fault. I would rather it be my fault because I can do something about that. Right? Imagine if your life is shit and you feel there's nothing you can do about it. That's so much worse than your life being shit and there's something you can do about it. That means that tomorrow you can get up and drag yourself out of that pit of darkness and try and like formulate some path to somewhere better. But if it's not, that's not accessible to you. If you're the control in your life is external and you're having a bad time, what are you supposed to do? Just sit there and suffer? You know,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, at any given of point, like at any given point of time, there is something that we can do. So, we should not be hopeless that there is nothing that I can do. So even if you feel like there is nothing that you can do, you should also should feel like there is something that you can do. So it's just like matter of time, like something gonna show up, or like if you are being patient, something might come up. So you just need to wait for some time, or like be patient. So like it's not about giving up entirely. Like something there is something that you can do. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's a cornerstone of like the Stoic philosophy, which I'm sure you've both read bits about. But
Yeah.
even if you can't control the circumstance, you can control your internal reaction to it. And I found that in my
Hmm.
life, like times when I've been more consistent with my meditation practice and I've been a bit more mindful and my attention span is more sort of clear and coherent rather than being fractured and sort of I've been doing things that kill my attention span. I find that something can happen and I can notice the my response internally. I can notice the shift in my emotions. I can notice the negative automatic thoughts that arise and actually decide how I think about those things. And even though that sounds quite, woo woo and unscientific, I think that is a phenomenon that people experience in their life. Something can happen to you and there's this brief moment where you can become aware of it. Right? I think it's just mindfulness 101, isn't it? You can become aware of that thought and that feeling and decide how you want to react to it and how you want to behave afterwards.
Something you guys both
Yeah.
spoke about was Naval Ravikant. I know he has a book, but it's not written by him.
Hmm.
Is there anything that comes to mind? Yeah,
The
yeah.
Almanac of
Is there anything that
Ravikant
comes
or
to mind
something. Yeah.
that you've learned from him?
You go first, man, and then
I
I'll
mean,
come.
there is something I like found interesting when he said something uh, like you can go against luck in a way that if you have enough skills. Like, he said something to someone at some point. It is that even if I am being stripped of everything that I have now, with the current skills that I developed, I can still be rich by in next 10 years. So it's more about the skills that you have like luck or no luck. I mean, there is one book I read, The Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Talib. So he says something like, um, a lucky idiot might get benefit in the short term, but if you have skills, you will get your chance to prove yourself. Like until then, you have to just keep putting your effort. So, as Joel said, it's more about locus of like internal control that you feel like even if external things are gonna play a part in your success or like the outcome that you want to accomplish. So effort is something that you can control. So it cannot be taken away by anyone. So I feel like no matter like where you are at life, the if you constantly putting efforts and like updating your skills, there is a chance that you can get success sooner or later. So something that I learned from Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, and mine is that like I'll be honest, the first quote on my homepage on Notion that I look at every single day is a quote from Naval Ravikant, which is the real test of intelligence is whether you're getting what you want out of life. Which is just like a real good reminder for me actually, because I can get so like stuck in my own head about how I should live and get get so caught up in ideas and theories. and using my intelligence in those ways and thinking that's what being intelligent is knowing stuff. But when I read that, it goes, no, Joel, none of that stuff matters fundamentally. What actually matters is how are you feeling, mate? How did you feel waking up this morning? How are your relationships with the people closest to you that you love the most? How are you feeling in response to your work and your hobbies and the stuff that you do? Because that's when I'm getting what I want out of my life, when I'm feeling good about who I am and who I'm around and the things I'm doing. And that's the real test of my intelligence, because there's no point being super smart or whatever, and then you get to a point where your life's dissatisfying, because then what's it all for?
Yeah.
So that's a nice little one that I think people like me and Jacob and yourself, people that listen to this would find useful. You know, the real test of your intelligence is, are you getting what you want out of your life? And if the answer to that is
Yeah.
no, then maybe some course correction is needed. And one little small one as well from him that I think about a lot in my sporting world and also in sort of my psychology and learning world is, he said he used to work like a lion, rather than sort of like, in a way that a lion will rest and rest and rest, and then suddenly they'll go out and hunt, and it'll be this chase and this pack mentality in terms of taking down this gazelle or antelope, whatever it is, and then you eat from that. You know, and it's like
Yeah.
this very, maybe for 20 hours of the day you're resting, but then for those 2 hours or whatever that you go on a hunt with your pack, that's when you're in like hyper focus mode, and you do the work that needs to be done to then bring back the resources to your family and your children, your offspring, etc. And I think about that in terms of my sport of like, you know, you can't train 8 hours a day. If you are training 8 hours a
Yeah.
day, it's not intense enough. Whereas if I can do a 2 hour or even a 1 hour session in the day, but really beat myself up and work on my weaknesses and develop parts of my game that other people aren't doing and that's advantageous, and then rest and recover and do that 4, 5, 6 times a week, I'm going to build so much more progress working like a lion, who eats big and has this one big hunt of the week or something, rather than being like, you know, a chimpanzee that chews on leaves but gets barely any nutrition from it for 8 hours a day, or
Yeah,
however long
to
chimps
break
have
these
to do
down
that.
then,
So
so
that's my two. Yeah.
Avinash, I interpret it as like the
Yeah.
what it's about fundamentally is, especially when you're kind of younger and you're growing up in the world, is like skill acquisition and just building these skills, because once you've got it, it's there as like a currency. And I think about that myself in my business pursuits. What I've always told myself is, yes, even if you do fail, at least you've learned the skills and you spent the time learning the skills. It's a nice one to fall back on. And with Joel, your two ones, I think I think this is him. He says like, if you're so smart, why aren't you happy? And or if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? Because people do really like, they know so much and they just store it and store it and store it. But then the real world application is not there. It's not there at all. And then you said about the lion, and I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like we take sprints, and like it's like how the day can be structured in like one big deep work sprint in the morning, and then like we rest, and then we go for again another deep work sprint. And also the thing about the lion is like, he's very efficient. Things come to him. He doesn't waste too much time. He like uses energy carefully. He like stores it up, and then when it's ready to pounce, like you're ready to pounce. So like you got to think, yeah, you got to think, how can I
Yeah.
be like a lion
100%.
in my daily life? Um, I get
Yeah. Well, that philosophy of you sprint then you rest, or you train and then you recover, is one of the many reasons that I think for me being an athlete has helped me in all areas of my life, because it's such a useful thing to understand. You can't work at full capacity all the time, you know, and I have to keep telling myself this because I do have a certain sort of, I don't know, perspective on my life where I feel like there's this voice that's telling me that I always need to be doing things and doing things and doing things. But actually, it's so much better to work at 9 out of 10 intensity for 2 hours in a day, and then, you know, recover and whatever else, than kind of drag yourself through hours and hours and have poor output and poor mental health from that. We're supposed to sprint and then recover. I think that's a meaningful way to live life, because then you get the kind of the best of both worlds. The guy that can be super ambitious and super hardworking, but also relax and be content. That's the perfect middle ground. Yeah.
Yeah, since you mentioned about like intensity of focus, in the Robert Sapolsky book, he mentioned something like for the larger part, the subconscious and unconscious mind drive our behavior. So the prefrontal cortex and the like conscious side of brain. So the focus that you can do is mostly 4 to 6 hours. So he mentioned something like that. So more than that, your brain kind of like exhausts itself, like conscious mind will exhaust yourself. So since I have these intrusive thoughts, like I often get intrusive thoughts in a day to day. So like I do things over and over and over. So like I can fight them in the morning, those kind of thoughts. When it comes to evening, when I'm so tired of the mental work that I did entire day, so I cannot fight them. So it kind of comes like a big struggle in a way that so I have to in a way calm myself down, so not to act on those intrusive thoughts. So he said something like, so you can only focus intensively for 4 to 6 hours. So that's what the power of the conscious mind that you can have. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with that
I
from
mean,
my own
actually, would you
experience,
say
for
you're a
sure.
lion?
Like, yeah.
Uh, yes. I mean, I have written 3 books. So for me, it is that I cannot write every day. So I cannot research every day. So like, so for my book, the time period is like the publication of my time. How I publish is that I take 1.5 year time. So for 8 months or 9 months, I just research about the book. So I write in 1 or 2 months. So it's kind of like all the data points or like notes that I have taken. So I will just write them
Yeah.
in the 1 or 2 months. So that is the first draft. So once the first draft is done, it will be
So
more easy to write this remaining draft. So it's kind of like I am kind of
yeah.
lion.
So if
I
people aren't aware,
cannot write
you're an
every day.
author, and
Yeah,
isn't it like a medical book you've written? Um,
yeah.
like what was like a sort of
No, no. It's not a medical book. It's kind of like a counter-intuitive self-help book, kind of. So I will show it to you now. So it's
Mm.
called Negative is the New Positive. So so how we are so obsessed about positivity and how we try to negate all the negative emotions that we have. So instead of accepting or like processing our negative emotion, we kind of suppress them and try to be positive all the time. So that is the
So negative is
entire
the new
book is
positive.
about.
So we try to suppress the negative thoughts and sort of always chase the positive thoughts. Is that kind of the theme of the book? So what's kind of the I know it's probably it takes like it's probably not easy to condense it into a short kind of form answer, but if this is the case, what's like the solution?
Uh you were talking about my book, like if like for like advice for the people who are
Yeah,
positive, like
if
want to be
people
positive all the time.
if I understand it rightly, so the concept of sort of suppressing our negative thoughts and opting for positive, if that's maybe the thing,
Mm,
like what's the solution?
mm. I mean, suppressing negative thoughts, people do it because it's so painful and kind of causes suffering. So they don't try to be in the such state because like no one wants to be sad, no one wants to be anxious, no one wants to be like let's say depressed as well. So when so we are not trained how to do processing of our emotions. So we like even let's say I am from India, so we have the entire different education system itself where all like positive emotions are so appreciated from everyone, so everyone tries to be positive. So like you have to put up the happy smiley face even if you're not feeling like that, like even you have to say um all you have to be very jubilant even though when you are internally feeling like shit. So it's kind of like that when you are not trying to how trained on how to process emotion, it becomes very difficult when you reached adolescence age, because that was the time where we are exposed to reality. So reality is very harsh. So there are so many things that we get disappointed, we get upset. There are like maybe job rejections that we face. We don't know like how to take them. So internally there might be so much of emotional turmoil, but we are not sure how to do that. So when self-help books or other books they say that you can be positive, there is such thing as a default state where you can just access it. You have to think positively, think um, like not to think not to feel any negative emotions, or like how develop a positive mindset. These are all things are good, but you should internally going through a lot. Those are the first things that you need to address. So if negative emotions are there, so instead of like let's say that someone I am feeling sad, so instead of understanding why I'm feeling sad, if I am saying that okay, it's okay, it everything will be all right, or something like that, so tomorrow I feel the same, day after tomorrow gonna I'm gonna feel the same. So it's more about why I'm feeling sad in the first place, or my needs not being met, or like someone said something. So like am I losing a sense of direction? So these are all the things that necessary things that you need to ask yourself. So like while processing the emotion. So one of the thing people can do is to journal. So I love journaling. So there are so many tons of questions that can reveal or expose your internal state. So you can read it on a piece of paper. So like emotions, what happens is that emotions or feelings or thoughts, they are very fleeting. So the what you feel now, so you think like you might remember at the end of the day. So you mostly you don't. So when you feel sad or some anxious or disappointment, you have to write it down. So the Robert Greene, the author of Laws of Human Nature, or like 40th Laws of Power, he said something like you have to carry a book with you, so a journal or like any notebook. So you have to be utmost honest. You have to be naked on that piece of paper. So you have to write down everything, or everything that is going on in your life, everything that is making you feel like shit. So that is where you can learn the patterns. That is where you can set the order so of your choice. So that is one of the thing that I recommend about the journaling. And another thing it is that seeking a therapy. So I mean therapy gets a bad rap these days because they say that it's not doesn't know no work, or like a therapist are like scams or something. But I would say that therapy is helpful in a way that it can therapy is more like a conversation that you have with a stranger, where he listens and where he acknowledges your feelings and acknowledges your uh, thoughts and everything. So you can be yourself. You can say whatever that you are feeling. So once it is out, so there is nothing gonna stay inside. So there is one popular quote that is by Holocaust survivor. She said something like expression is opposite of depression. So you need to express your feeling. You need to express your emotions or thoughts. Like if you failing to do so, then it will be much more
Yeah,
difficult to get up tomorrow. So one of the thing, yeah, expressing, and another one, it is that in the book I mentioned about like what exactly feeling. So that is something why everyone needs to understand. So some people say that, so let's say that someone feeling despair or grief or something, but essentially they kind of use the umbrella term called sad. So when you are using umbrella term, so you are kind of encapsulating like everything. So if you know like what exactly you're feeling, so it will be much more easy to work on it or address it or like acknowledge, accept. So these are all things that you can do when you know exactly what you're feeling. So these takes a bit of practice. But yeah, so once you get used to it, you will be much more peace with yourself, even though there is a there is even the world
Yeah,
is
I
burning
feel
around
like
you,
there's
so
a
you
lot of
can be peace
this
with yourself.
numbing, and it's
Yeah,
like you have a bad feeling, and say fear.
yeah,
And what we do is we take that thing of fear and we replace it with like another emotion of ego to get rid of that to but we don't overcome the fear and go through it. And I feel like there's a lot of like it's almost like fake smiles
mm,
in this world. People pretend to be happy. Like you go to like a
yeah,
restaurant or like a hotel and you see someone and they present this um, like fake smile, like because they're trying to put this thing in front of what's just gone on in their day, and you can kind of tell. Everyone can tell when it's around it, but you know they've got to go through it. And I like what you said about journaling, and yeah, that's been massive for me, and it's been massive for Joel. Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's
yeah,
loads to unpack in what you said. Sorry, I just want to jump in, but like this idea of we we avoid our internal experience a lot of the time, and we don't realize that we're doing it. I think Jacob's idea of fear is a great one, but any form of anxiety or apprehension, any form of discomfort internally in a conversation with somebody in an environment that's new to you, or when you don't feel quite good enough at the thing you're trying to attempt to do, and so you procrastinate on it and you avoid it. There's so much avoidance of whatever it is we're facing, and I think it's just a great general rule that obviously you can't implement every time because life's complicated and sometimes you feel like shit and you need to invest in yourself and stuff. But generally, I think confronting this kind of discomfort and negativity leads to positive outcomes, and that's that's the overarching theme that I get from the title of your book, that we can kind of alchemize a negative emotion, a negative experience into something positive by confronting it.
yeah,
To Jacob's example about fear, yes, fear is uncomfortable. Of course, fear is uncomfortable. But if you move through fear, if you integrate fear, if you accept it, but do the thing anyway, still do the thing scared, then number one, you will get an outcome that you probably like. Um, Even if you don't, you'll learn something, like Jacob said. And two, you'll realize that you're braver than you thought, and that discomfort doesn't have to be something to move away from, but can actually be something you can move through and integrate, like I said. Or anxiety. Anxiety is always about the unknown, right? Because the unknown is scary. The unknown can go wrong. The unknown is the part of the territory in your life that you haven't discovered. But also, what's in the unknown is a better life and a better outcome and a better version of you, because that is also currently unknown. So I like this idea that we don't have to move away from uncomfortable experiences or emotions, because they're often the keys to the kingdom that we actually want to venture through. They're the path to what you want. Overcoming them is the ultimate form of self growth. And we get so caught up in like these secondary emotions of avoiding anxiety, and we get anxious because we're feeling anxious, or we get sad because we're feeling sad, but we feel like we should be happy. We add extra layers on things that just create more damage, I think, to our mental health. So these are really important conversations.
yeah. About the fear of rejection, there is one book called Rejection Proof, in which the author recommended that make a list, like set a goal in a way that you have to get 20 rejections per day, or like 10 rejections per day. So in a way that when you fill that list, it's kind of makes you excited to get rejected. So you are more likely to go out and seek rejection. So what is the max that's gonna happen? So you might get rejected. So when you add that rejection list to, like, you are in a way appreciating that rejections. So it is one of such beautiful books. So it's kind of like facing your fears. So face the rejection. So set a goal. So today I have to get 10 rejections, and go out and seek jobs, or like some like sales. Like if they get rejected, write it down on that list. So at the end of the day, you have to get 10. So you are more likely to push yourself to get rejected more. Let's say that at the end of the day, you got 9 rejections. So it's not full. So let's say your goal is 10. So you kind of like, even if it is the end of the day, you kind of push yourself to get rejected once more. Like you kind of push yourself to ask for a raise or ask for like someone to get hire you. So these are the things, um, even though we are so afraid or so fearful about, it kind of you if you can reframe the rejection into something you can appreciate. So yeah, you can
What was
accomplish
your
so many
last
things.
rejection, Joel?
Oh,
Alan,
God,
Ash,
that's
you can
a
go first,
quite a deep
actually,
question.
if you want to.
I mean, I am
What?
getting rejected all the time these days. I don't know. I'm searching for yeah, part-time jobs here in Canada. It's a bit difficult here. I mean, there is so much of competition is between, and there is so much of groupism going on. I mean, it kind of look as an excuse, but groupism will be there around, especially with South Asians who are in Canada. But like when I apply for jobs, so I know I'm going to more likely to get rejected by it. So it's kind of like I'm kind of prepared for it. So yeah. So even if like get rejected, it's okay. What is the
I
max
mean,
that I
if you
can
get
get
rejected from a
rejection
job,
wise?
it's not like
So yeah.
they're gonna throw the piece of paper at you and be like, "Why did you apply for this?"
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, nothing's changed from where you started, which was you still didn't have that job. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it damages
Yeah.
you or takes away from you. But now, to answer your question, Jacob, I'm not really sure. I mean, this could be a cope to sort of get all philosophical about it, but I guess a good answer is I have this version of Joel that I'd like to be, right? And I try and be him in the world in what we do, right? Whether it's the podcast or whether it's who I am as an athlete or the content that I make or the conversations I have day to day with people. There's an ideal Joel I want to be. And the world hasn't really reflected back at me that I am fully that guy yet, right? I'm not the best athlete I can be. I'm not I don't make a living out of doing the podcast, and I don't have people that want to come and see me speak, and I don't have books that I've written for people to buy, right? So that's a rejection from the world that I'm not currently that guy that I'd like to be. But each day I still try and show up and take on those rejections and take on, the many critical comments in our Instagram posts or whatever to then fight through that and move through that and then eventually get to the point I want to get to because I'm enjoying the experience as it goes, despite the fact that I'm not quite
Maybe you
there
have
yet.
to combat the world in order to try and maybe rejections is in between you and your ideal self. And I mean, one of your hurdles is trying to beat the self that you're on the podcast in real life, and that's a rejection in itself. That's
100%. 100%. I find, yeah, that's something I do find difficult. But then also on the other side of that difficulty, when somebody recognizes the kind of person I can be in conversations like this and appreciates it, and even if they don't understand it or like it necessarily, but are interested in it and accept it and find it cool, I get a great amount of joy from that. I get a great amount of joy because I feel like it's actually recognizing my true self or the self I'd like to be. Yeah. I want to pivot slightly, boys, if you don't mind, because Robert Greene's name has been mentioned twice previously in this conversation, and I know Jacob was a big fan of 48 Laws of Power, reading it on the train when he went to college back in the day. I always remember that was, 2 years ago or something, but and the amount of value you got from that book, and also the fact that, in me and Jacob's private terminology via WhatsApp messages, the idea of Robert Greening someone is something that comes up a lot, because it's not like I read his books and then I could name all the 48 laws for you boys. But what I do think is there are certain ways that you can be in the world, a kind of vibe you can put out in a social environment, the way you can say things, the tone you can use, the way you can orchestrate your behavior to lead to positive outcomes. And rather that being seen as manipulation, as some people have criticized Robert Greene's work for being, I see it as how can we orchestrate our behavior to make everyone around us feel better, and that's ourselves, that's the people we interact with, that's people in our relationships. So yeah, I'm interested for both of you boys. Tell me about some of the best lessons you've got from Robert Greene and the ones you think about most often, and how you try and apply those.
I think I read four books of his, 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, Mastery, and The Art of Seduction. I think I got more value from mastery book. It's because like I read it at the time of like I'm about to write my book, so it's kind of like provided a guide like what I should be doing in order to master the writing. So like the apprenticeship or like I did not have any one around me who is a writer, so I cannot like seek any advice or something. But what I learned it is that there are so many mentors that you can find online who can teach you those things. Like there are so many authors who said like their writing process, what they do. So like in the 40th Laws of Power, there is one never outshine the master, but you have to seek the knowledge and wisdom from him. So when you get a chance, like where you are too powerful, like not too powerful, too how do you say? Like like so great, so excellent with your skill, then you can make your move. So one of such thing. And in Last of Human Nature, I think it is the most like impacted book I have ever read. It is that I don't know it. The thing with Robert Greene is that the words are like the stories that you tell, that he tells, they kind of get under your skin. So it is in a way that they you carry with them, you carry them with you. So yeah, there is another one in The Last of Human Nature only. I read something. It is that like it was said, like he mentioned Shakespeare said something about that the world is your play, so where you can be your own character or something like that. So something I learned it is that like so many like people who are against to Robert Greene's books are like so they say that he is promoting some Machiavellian all these stuff. I feel like people are most denial about this power or or the seduction that is going on. It is more subconscious level where people kind of make you feel something even though they may not appear like they are doing something. So we have to be more realistic as possible. As Robert Greene says, his books are more real than anyone's. Uh, we have to be as realistic as possible, see people as they are, and accept them as facts, and be true to your emotions, and always do something that comes so naturally to you. Like he mentioned about the natural tendencies, natural inclination, dispositions in his master book, where he said what is something that comes so easy to you that you can like work on and that you can like make money out of so later. So there, that is something I like. There are so many lessons I cannot recall now. Yeah, Robert Greene is one of my favorite author who
Yeah,
impacted me a lot.
I
Yeah, that's
I like
I can
Robert
say.
Greene as well because as well as things that you can implement in your life, it's things you can protect yourself from. And I notice these patterns that he talks about. I notice a lot of them. There's one I was thinking about today with
Oh,
um
he disconnected. He'll be back briefly. This sometimes happens. Here we
oh, we're
go.
back. Okay, there's one I'm thinking today of
He's back.
always say less than necessary, and I do this one a lot, but I was thinking about the opposite of like, okay, you do that to conceal stuff and to not lose, not let people read you, kind of like a poker type thing. But then the extreme of that as well is concealment. So,
He'll
oh,
be back.
is this me or you?
Jake, what's going on?
Oh, okay. So,
Well, it's you
apologies.
keep dropping out the call
Okay.
to us.
So the opposite of if you think about it, if someone's talking all the time, and we know a couple people that are really talking all the time, um, are they trying to hide something? Because what basically that does, right, is it forms a smoke screen, and they're it means that they control the narrative of the conversation if they're the only one that's talking. And the reason of that control is they can then direct it, and they don't have to they don't have to give more of themselves, and they're hiding some vulnerability or some other depth. Yeah, I
Insecurities.
was thinking about that today. I was like, I know someone who talks all the time, and is that the reason? Well, and then I was like, okay, when have they ever been vulnerable to me? Never. So, okay,
Mm. It's like they talk so much, so the space is always so filled with yap that you don't have the opportunity to ask them questions they don't want to answer. Do you know what I mean they can steer the topic of conversation
but yeah,
because they're doing all the talking? It's interesting.
there's patterns I see. I mean, like, I read The Art of Seduction as well, and I got a friend that's kind of not very good with girls, and he got friend zone recently, and I was like, mate, she's creating a love triangle for you to get her, for you to like her more, because like that's such like it was a great chapter when he talked about, I think it was Nisha and Madame Lusalon, if that's right. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
such
I
an interesting
remember. Yeah.
technique to, like, okay, you got this triangle of people, and it just makes you want. It's a thing of like manipulating. A seducer will manipulate you to like to fear losing you to someone else, and to um, kind of put the pressure on, kind of make it competitive. And there's a lot of examples from seduction. There's a lot about mystery in the art of seduction. It's oh, I'm reconnecting again.
Yeah.
Is he back
Yeah,
shortly?
like before reading that book, I'd never know like Nisha was
Yeah,
heartbroken by someone.
yeah, and like he's quite
Yeah.
controversial. There, like I kind of understand why reading him. Like there's laws like, if you like stay close to your enemies, and like if you don't have any enemies, like make them, or like pose as a friend and work as a spy.
Well, yeah, yeah. But thing is, right, the way I think about Robert Greene is that you can take that perspective, that critical perspective, that it's a bit immoral and manipulative and exploitative of people. And yes, there's an argument there that I could get behind. But the profound thing that becomes clear to me is that there is a social world that we exist within, and it's not really measurable in the kind of objective measures that science would like us to use. It's about feelings and about relationships and about connections between people and about values and about dynamics in particular situations. And this social world is something that we all exist within and would hugely benefit from learning how to be in it effectively. Because what is basically everything we all do in life? It involves people. Whether it's books you want to write to sell to them, whether it's teammates you want to compete with, whether it's opposition you want to take down, whether it's a business you want to launch and to create something that people like, or you want to build a positive romantic relationship, or have a great relationship with your mum and dad, or have your own kids and be a great father or mother. Our lives are about our connection with other people. And so there are these dynamics, and they're real. And I think there's so many points and rules from Robert Greene that I can apply into my sporting world and my relationships and stuff. It's a reality, like you boys both said. It's pointing out things that are true and real. And so there are skills to be learned in that. And I think the social skills maybe could be the most meta skill there is, because if you can learn how to get what both of you want in an interaction between people, not just exploiting and being psychopathic and just gaining for yourself and sort of harming the other person, but ways you can act that bring you both into a more positive experience, then you will benefit hugely in life. That, I think, will bring you positivity, positive mental health and good relationships and things like wealth as well, because that's where, what drives people's buying habits. It's how they feel about the person they're buying from and all of that. So there's a true reality, a true social reality that exists maybe beneath the physical world, the superficial world, the people we present ourselves as to the world, and that reality is something that we should notice and learn about, and that's what
Yeah,
Robert Greene's work does.
that's really well said. I think we should
Yeah.
wrap up here because my thing's dropping in and out, and I know you're quite tired, and yeah, we come
Yeah.
to the end. But yeah, thank you, Avinash. This was good.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's a lovely talk. Like I get to uh like talk about about my book, like so many
If
things.
people want to
Yeah,
find your work, where should they go?
it is amazing. Yeah. Mostly on Instagram. So on Instagram they can
Thank you.
find me on Book
Thanks everyone
Loafers.
for listening.
Cool. Thanks, man.
An hour on the
Thanks.
dot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you, man. I'm reconnecting. Oh, hello. Yeah, yeah, that was interesting.